Hi everyone, it's Gretchen. Just getting ready for our Sweet as Honey card class. Let me know as you come in so I know everybody's here before we get started. Hi Lindsay, hey Cheryl. Just to let you know that hopefully the package of envelopes you got should be in the order that we're going to be doing the cards in. So if you look in your stack and you find the envelope with the beehive and the Sweet as Honey card, that's going to be first. And hopefully that'll tell you what the top of your stack is in, or what order your stack is in. We're not going to need too many supplies for this class. Basically, your scoreboard and your adhesive is going to be most of it. Everything is already stamped for you. Most of the images came on the cards, printed on the cards, but I added a few images on a couple of the cards. I'm just going to put my phone on silent so okay, I just got a note from Kathy that says she's going to be a little late. Judy is here. I do not see Sam/Sharon yet. I know Mom is actually in the room with me, and Terry wasn't going to make it. I'm not sure about Barb. All right, I'm going to get going. So like I said, this is the Sweet as Honey card class. We are using the Sweet as Honey collection from Close to My Heart. I used an older stamp set to add to some of those cards, added some images. It's called Happiness Never Grows Old. It was a Stamp of the Month set from a couple of years ago. A little over a year. But, it's, as you can see, it's floral. So if you wanted to copy the idea, I'm sure everybody has some flower stamps. And I'm just looking for the paper collection to show you. Here we go. And if you wanted to buy some more of this paper, you can buy the paper, and this is the stamp set, which is optional. You can get it, get the collection with the sticker set, or not. And these are the papers in the paper collection. So you get 2 of each, double-sided sheet. So you can see that they're the same, you know, they coordinate. We'll use this one and the bees. They coordinate with the cards, but they are slightly different. And we use the Picture My Life card set. This is the one card that I did not use. And I used both shortbread, which is the yellow, and charcoal, which is the gray cardstock. So all the cardstock in these cards are those two colors. And you'll see as we go along that the technique for these cards are all totally the same. They're all going to be put together the same way. So once you've done it once, you'll see how easy it is to do it on all the rest of them. So this is our supplies for this first card, which is the Sweet as Honey. And for each card, we have a 6 1/4 by 4 1/4 card base, because our large cards are 4 by 6 or 6 by 4. Each card is printed on both sides. And then we have the 3 by 4 cards. So the flaps will vary in size based on the cards and the direction of the card. On each flap, we are going to make a 1/2 inch score in one direction. So this one is, and I will tell you which, each piece of cardstock has a lighter side and a darker side. So you're going to put your darker side face up in your scoreboard, and you're going to score at a 1/2 inch on the long side. So the 4 3/4 inch side will be at the top, the longer side, and you're going to score at a 1/2 inch. And every single piece of paper we're going to score at a 1/2 inch. It's just dependent on which side goes in the top. This piece is a little trickier because it's close in size, but it is, again, the long side that goes along the top, and it's 2 3/8 inches. That's just short of 2 1/2. And again, we're going to score on the 1/2 inch side. The first thing we're going to do is attach the flaps for the card. So you're going to score or fold on your score line. You're going to score towards the bumpy side. So we scored here. We created a dent. The back of it has a bump. And you're going to fold back towards the bump. And you can use a bone folder to create a crisper fold. Or you can just fold with your fingers. Either way, whichever you prefer. And that'll give us our 2 flaps. Now, if I was putting together an album, which is how I learned to make these flaps, I would use a stronger tape. Because it's only going on a card, I am happy using my tape runner. So what I'm going to do is hold the card, the flap, with the little 1/2 inch flap up on top, and put my adhesive on there. Now my flap is a 1/2 inch, my adhesive is a 1/4 inch, so I'm going to make 2 lines there. They're going to overlap slightly because I am not perfect and I don't get it exactly on the edge, but that's fine. And I'm going to go ahead and put adhesive on both of them. So again, fold the flap back so now it's facing on top. And I'm sorry, I didn't tell you on this one. You were supposed to put the darker one on facing you and score. If you didn't, it's okay. I'll try to be better about telling you that on all the rest of them. And again, I just put 2 strips of adhesive. Now I'm going to take my 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 inch flat piece of cardstock, and I'm going to hold it so the darker side is facing me. Again, darker side, lighter side, it's not critical. It's just when I was putting them together, whichever color I liked better with the card I was putting on them. So I am going to attach my gray flap. So I'll turn it over so that 1/2 inch flap and the adhesive is facing down, and I'm going to put it centered along one of the short sides of my flat piece of cardstock. Okay, and my smaller one, again, I'm going to turn it over so the flap and the adhesive is face down, and I'm going to put it, and I gave you all these measurements, but I'm going to verify with myself. So it's about 3/4 of an inch from the right side. So I'm turning mine over so it's upside down, so I can see my edge better. I'm lining my ruler up on the 3/4 inch line. I'm going to fold that out of the way. And then I'm just going to attach that. Now all of the folds on the flap are going to be flush with the cut edges of the card base. And that's it. And you know, you can put the gray one on the bottom, or you can put the gray one on the top, depending on how you like it when you get your pattern paper on there, or your PML cards, as the case may be. Okay, so now all we have to do is decorate. So, and of course, as always, you're always welcome to use the other side of the card if you want. But in this case, I'm going to use, on the large card, I'm using the gray side. So I'm putting my adhesive on the yellow side. And when I attach it to the card base, you open your flaps and you're just going to put it centered. You should have 1/8 of an inch around each of the sides. We'll do the gray flap first, because then I'll show you how to cut the other one to get your 2 little beehives. So I want this yellow Sweet as Honey side. So I'm going to put my adhesive onto the gray side of the card. And I generally put, adhesive on all 4 sides. And then if it's a larger size piece of paper like this one, I'll just put a little bit in the middle as well to make sure it adheres well. And again, you're going to center it on the top or the outside, whichever you prefer, of the flap. And I'm just using my bone folder to burnish it down to get a better stick. You can also just use your hands if you'd like. All right, now I'm going to open this, and I'm going to open it on my sample card here. And these are bees. Now this card was a 4x6 card. I cut it in half and split the 2 sides for 2 different cards. And this is the only card I cut for you. And I just wanted them to be in the right envelope for what you needed. So that's why I did that. But if you were to order another set of these cards, this would be a 4x6. So I want this yellow side showing. So I'm going to put my adhesive on the gray side. And attach it to the back of the gray flap. Okay, so for our little flap here, I have this beehive. And if you've noticed, you know, there's a beehive on both sides of this card. And the way they are printed, we can actually cut it properly to make use out of both of them. And I'm just referring to my notes, so I tell you as it says in the notes. Okay, so I'm going to turn it to the yellower side, which is a very pale yellow, but you've got the gray and the yellow, which is the vertical orientation. And I'm going to put it in my paper cutter so that the bottom of the card below the beehive is at the 1 5/8 inch mark. So that's right after 1.5. And basically that falls right above the top of the beehive. So I'm going to go ahead and cut at 1 5/8 inches. And then I'm going to turn it upside down, and I'm going to stick this, which would be the right side if you were holding it face up, at the 1 7/8 inch mark, which again is just past the beehive artwork. And that's what we're going to do to get the right size beehive. Now that first piece we cut off, this piece is basically garbage. First piece we cut off, if you turn it over to the gray side, we now can see the other beehive. And we're going to use those same measurements. So I'm going to put the side at the bottom of the beehive at 1 5/8 and cut. And then I'm going to turn it around and put the right side, if it was right side up, of the beehive at 1 7/8. That's just short of 2 inches. And now we have 2 beehives, the same size. And the pieces we cut off the card, I actually threw away. Recycled. Well, recycled, yes. So I am going to put the yellow beehive on the front of the flap and the gray on the inside. So I've got the yellow one here. And this piece I consider small enough to not need a little extra in the middle. So just around the outside. And right centered on the flap. And on the gray, same on the gray. Open the flap and center it using that fold line as the bottom edge when you're eyeballing center. And there you go. Now all you have to do is add our cork shapes. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but I find these cork shapes smell. The reason they smell is because they're die cut with a laser. So I'm hoping, I think over time, after you open the plastic bag and they sit around for a while, I think the smell fades if it's bothering you. So they just pop out really super easy. As you can see, I took from this right edge here. It's a cluster of 5 hexagons or honeycombs. And what I'm going to do is just pop out the centers. And you'll see this sheet has so many pieces. We're not going to use all of them. So you will have a ton left over for your own cards, which is fun. So this is what I put over here on the card. And one thing I like about these cork shapes is they add some dimension, but they're not so dimensional that they're going to get messed up in the mail. So what I did is just positioned it so it wasn't covering the H in the honey. And as you can see, it's just a sticker, so the backing just peeled off. And then I'm putting some individual hexagons. So I took one of these bigger ones from the top right corner. That's this one. And sometimes it's easier than other times to get the backing paper off. And I'm just going to put it in the bottom right corner of the card here. And then these other 2 are little ones that we popped out of our other piece. And then this one I just put a little bit to the right of the as and sweet as. And there we go. And that's all there is to it. Whoops. Excuse me. So I'm just going to give you a second in case you need a minute to catch up. If you don't need a minute to catch up, this is the next card we're going to be working on. So if you look in your envelope, these are the pieces. Now, I said before that these card bases are 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. So they are slightly larger than a standard size card, which is an A2 card, which is the half of a 8.5 by 11 letter size piece of paper. So you will need a larger envelope. These are A6 envelopes. Okay, I'll leave this up here in case you want to see it. And when somebody suggested that I add the pictures of the cards to the instructions. So if you'll notice now when you get a PDF of my instructions, there'll be a picture of the card next to it. So if you need to refer back to it, you'll know which ones I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the card with the bee and the beehives. So you will have, we're going to cut our beehive card in a little while, but you'll have your gray card base and your card that says it's the little things that make big. Every time I read that, I want there to be another word. You've got your black hexagons, which this was actually cut from the paper pack. This is not from the card collection, in case you were wondering. We've got a yellow flap, shortbread, and another gray charcoal flap. And then we have this card with the hexagons on it, and I stamped on this card, and I couldn't believe it that Close to My Heart did not provide a stamp of a bee. In the card kit, there's a stamp set that has a little tiny bee, but I wanted a larger bee. So this came from my personal collection. It's an older stamp. I cannot read the company on here because there was a price sticker over it. And I know which this is a company that I bought a ton of stamps from back in the day. And for some reason, the name will not jump into my mind. But anyway, there are a million. If you were interested in making more, there are a million bee stamps available. I'm betting a bunch of you have some. Of course, as always, you're always welcome to borrow mine if you wanted to make more. So anyway, these are stamped in charcoal ink. So I've got the bee, and then I've just got this Just Because, which came off of one of these stamp sets that you've seen before that just has all the greetings, which these are really handy. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is put our flaps on our card base. And in this case, we're going to put the short side at the top. So it's 3 3/4 inches. Make sure you're all the way to the left when you put it in. And again, let me see. We're actually going to put the lighter side in, facing you. And you're going to score it 1/2 inch. And with our flap, we're also going to put the lighter side facing up. And you're going to put the long side at the top, just 4 1/8 inch, and you're going to score at 1/2 inch. Now, I've said this before that I'd rather make 2 shallower passes on my scoreboard than dig in deep once, because if you dig in deep, you are more likely to rip the cardstock, which of course we don't want to do. So you're going to fold your pieces towards the bumpy side. Burnish them either with your bone folder or fingers. And then we're going to add the adhesive to the back of the flap with the little 1/2 inch flap facing up towards you. Now, if you have a hard time putting adhesive in a skinny space, you can certainly, see, I went off track there, which happens, but luckily this tape is very forgiving and you can get it off the edges easily. But you can also use a roll of double-sided tape, which precision with those is a little better. Although, believe me, I've gone off track with those too, so. Okay, so I'm giving you the measurements here, and you are going to attach these to the darker side of your card base, and we're going to go 3/4 inch from the bottom. I like these quilting rulers. This is a small one, but for these kinds of projects, because you can, I mean, a skinny ruler, obviously, we're talking about 1/2 and 3/4 inch. So a skinny ruler is going to work, but a little wider ruler just gives you a little more control, lets you lay down right there in that 3/4 inch space. You don't have to mark your paper and then put it down. Although you could if you feel more comfortable that way. And I'm, again, just putting the fold line right against my card edge. It's funny. I was just checking the measurements because it didn't look as wide, but I was right. And then on the other side, I'm turn around and I'm going to put my ruler at 1 1/4 inches from the bottom. And that's where I'm going to attach my charcoal flap. So the yellow one goes 3/4 of an inch from the bottom, and the gray flap goes 1 1/4 inches from the bottom. So it's slightly above the yellow flap. So we're going to open both our flaps. We're going to put the large card on first. It's the little things that make big. And I'm using the darker yellow with the vertical side. Oh, sorry. Lindsay's asking how far up should this be? The yellow flap is 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom. And the gray flap is 1 1/4 inches up from the bottom on the right. Yellow on the left, gray on the right. This is the bottom of the card. I'm just going to pause for a minute so everybody can catch up. Okay, and I've already put my adhesive on my large card. We're using the vertical side, the darker yellow, and it gets centered. Open your flaps and it gets centered on the large gray card base. 1/8 of an inch around all the edges. That'll be the case for every piece of paper. Should have 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. And then we'll put our paper on the yellow flap first, and then we'll cut our beehive. So on the outside, we've got our bee, our just because bee. And that gets on the front of the flap, centered. And on the inside of that flap, we're going to put our black hexagons. Well, we will use the B side of the paper on a couple of the other cards. And that goes on the inside of the yellow flap, centered. Just checking the order of cutting in my directions again. So we are going to cut again. This card, we can use the beehives from both sides. And then we're also going to use the rest of this card on the next card. So just try to be careful when you're cutting it. So this is the light side of the card. We're going to put it in our paper cutter at 1 1/4 inches. So we're going to put the bottom of the beehives at the 1 1/4 inch mark. And when we cut, you'll see we're just right above the top of those beehives. Now we're going to put the beehives right side up in our paper cutter, and we're going to put the left side at 3 3/8. That's just short of 3.5 inches. And basically, you'll see that you're going to be cutting just to the right of that third beehive. So you've got 1 1/4 inches tall, 3 3/8 inches wide. Yeah. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? Okay, so that's our light beehives. Now we'll discard that little piece, and we're going to turn our card over to the dark side. And again, we want the height to be 1 1/4 inches. So we're going to stick the bottom, the edge of the bottom of the beehives at 1 1/4 inches. And cut right above the top of those beehives. Now this this piece I'm cutting on both sides because I kind of want to center those three. I want the 3 beehives centered on the piece I keep. So this is now the left side of the card. Turn the card upside down. Wait. Oh, okay. Sorry, I read my directions wrong. Okay, so the new left side here, you're going to put it in actually right side up. Got that? Put the beehives right side up in your paper cutter. I didn't actually cut. Did I? Sorry, guys. See, when I can't even understand my directions. Okay, yeah. Okay, right side up. You're going to be at 4 1/8 because you're going to cut just to the right of that 4th beehive. You're going to cut that 5th, partial. Sorry, you couldn't see that. You're going to cut this partial beehive off. So you're putting it at 4 1/8 and cutting that off. Now you're going to turn it around, put the beehives in upside down, and now you're going to cut it at 3 3/8. And that's how you get it mostly centered. You get most of those 3 beehives. Now, of course, if you weren't worried about that, you wanted partial beehives, you could just make one cut. But you want the card to be 1 1/4 inches tall, 3 3/8 inches wide, just like your light colored ones. Now this card, like I said, we're going to use this on the next card. So just put that aside for now. And these are all ready to go on our flaps. As you can see, I've got this card here. I'll move these out of the way now. We're going to put the dark ones on the inside. My flaps are all open, so go ahead and do that. I'll make sure those cutting directions are, I'll take another look, make sure they're clear, and send them out again if I need to. Oh, sorry. I keep coming close to me. So the dark ones go on the inside of the flap. And we're going to close up those flaps, and we're going to put the light side on the top or the outside of the flap. So it's the top layer of our card here. Okay. So we're going to put some more hexagons, and let me just confirm that this is the right size. Yep. So you're going to pop out one of the hexagons from one of these, from the inside of one of these outlines, and that's this larger one right here. And then these other two smaller ones are, again, the same size as the ones we popped out of the first piece from the first card, the little tiny ones. And you can add as few or as many of these as you want to your card. Assuming you can get the backing off of them. And there you go. Oh, sorry. I forgot this strip up here. This is this long strip at the bottom. And you'll notice that it's actually longer than our card. I cut mine. This cork is very easy to cut. But first, I have another piece pop out. I'm just trying to keep them all in place so I'll show you where I got mine from. So you can pop out all your small hexagons from the middle of this strip. Boy, that one didn't want to come out. Okay, so what I did was lay mine on top of the card to see how long I needed it. And what I did was cut off 4 hexagons, but I want to keep that side piece there. So when you cut it off, you're really going to have 3 in a partial. So all I did was put my scissors at the edge of that and I just straightened out my angles there. So that's the piece you're going to keep, and that's the piece I cut off. And then you could use this again. I would cut, those extra pieces off, and then you've got 3 in a row to use on something else. And then I'm going to center it between the top of the gray cardstock and the top of the yellow cardstock. Approximately centered anyway. And it should fit right across there. Don't lose all your little hexagons. Everybody doing okay? Our next card is Be Your Own Kind of. When you open it up, it says beautiful. And this is, we're going to use our leftover piece from the card we just finished. Okay, so we're going to put our charcoal cardstock in our paper scoreboard at with the lighter side facing up, and we're going to score at 1/2 inch. And we're going to put our yellow cardstock in the smaller piece in the scoreboard with the darker side facing up, and score at 1/2 inch. So lighter side for gray, darker side for yellow. And we're going to fold towards the bumpy side, burnish on that fold, and then put adhesive on the back of those 1/2 inch flaps. All right, so both of these flaps get attached 1/4 inch from the top or bottom. I put my large piece of yellow cardstock to the light side facing up, and I'm putting my ruler at 1/4 inch, and I'm going to put my gray flap down first. And this will be 1/4 inch from the top, which is one of the long sides. Line up the folded edge with the cut edge of the card base, and then turn it around to the bottom of the card. Again, 1/4 inch from the edge, and I'm just going to open that to make sure I don't get adhesive on top of it. And I'm going to add my yellow flap to the edge. That would be the right edge of the card. So you've got the top, the bottom, the gray flap is attached to the left side near the top, and the yellow flap is attached to the right side near the bottom. When we open this flap, both flaps rather, we're going to put the large card that says beautiful down. So put adhesive on the yellow side that says Hive and center it on the card. Okay, we're next going to cut the piece we had left over from the line of Hive cards. And what I did was, you see this little tiny bee in the corner? I wanted to keep that. So I'm going to put the card in the paper cutter. I'm just confirming this measurement. Okay, this card, this is the one where the border is going to be slightly bigger. It's just because that's what we had left. So I did a uniform border around it, which means that instead of this card being 3x4, it's actually 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. So you'll see it's 2 3/4 on that side. I'm going to put it into my paper cutter so that the tiny bee is in the top left corner. And I'm going to put the edge at 3 3/4 inches and cut off this printed, the lines, cut that off. And this is recycling. This is the piece we're going to attach to the inside of our yellow flap. And I put that bee in the bottom right corner. Though I suppose if you like it in the top left corner, you could do that. And this card, because it's slightly smaller, it's going to have, you're still going to center it on the flap, but it will have about a 1/4 inch border all the way around instead of the typical 1/8 inch. So this will give you a chance to decide what size border you like better. And then if we close this flap to the front, we are going to put this gray, and I think these are supposed to be like a swarm of bees. We're going to use the gray side. So we'll put adhesive on the yellow side and attach that to the front of the yellow flap. Okay, so next we are going to now you'll notice that I dropped my stamp on mine. But we are going to use this card for both sides of the other flap. And I stamped on everybody's. And I use this stamp, and this is I'll take it out of the plastic so it's easier to see. It's a little lesson. See, it's 2 lines, but I only had room for 1 line. So if you wanted to, you could actually cut your stamps. You could cut right down the middle if you wanted to. And then you've got 2 different stamps. But I didn't know how I might want to use it in the future, so I didn't want to cut it. So what I did was I inked it up. And then I put a Post-it note. Post-it notes are great for this. This is actually the Post-it note I used. And what I did was I was going to I stamped the second half first, actually. And what I did was I put my Post-it note above where I wanted to stamp, because I was going to use the bottom half, you can't see that, the bottom part of the stamps to stamp own kind of. So I inked up the whole stamp. I put my Post-it note and I stamped it. And so the Be Your, hope you can see this, the Be Your got stamped on top of the Post-it note, and only Own Kind Of got stamped on the piece of cardstock. And then to do the first half of it, I reversed it. So I put my Post-it note below the stamping. I inked up my whole stamp and I stamped it. And the Be Yours stamped on the spot I wanted, and the Own Kind Of stamped on my Post-it note. So that's how you can kind of use your stamps in different configurations than how they come. What we're going to use both the top and the bottom part of this card. And what I'm going to do is put the one I stamped, putting it in my paper cutter at 1 1/4 inches. And then I'm going to turn it around and I'm putting it at 1 1/8 inch. So that means we're only cutting off 1/8 of an inch from the top, just a little sliver. And that's just to get more even spacing. So this is 1 1/8 inches tall. Now we're going to cut off 1/4 of an inch from each side. So this is 6 inches. So if we put it at 5 3/4 inches, doesn't matter which side you put in. I'm putting it top up. Put it at 5 1/4 inches. Cut that little piece off. Turn it around. Put it at 5 1/2 inches. Cut that edge off. And that should be the size you need it. We're going to do the same thing on the other skinny. So I'm going to put it at 1 1/4 inches. Actually, I'm not, because this one seems to be printed a little farther away. I am going to put it at 1 3/8 inches. Sometimes the printing on these are not exactly, not everyone comes exactly the same. So sometimes you have to fudge a little. I'm actually kind of putting it between 1 1/4 and 1 3/8. You can put it where it works for you. But when I turn it around, I'll put it at 1 1/8 because 1 1/8 will be the final size. That's pretty centered. And you know what? If it's not perfectly centered, not a lot of people probably notice. So again, put the long side in your paper cutter at 5 3/4. Cut 1/4 of an inch off. Turn it around, put it at 5 1/2 inches. Cut the other side off, and that's your final size. Now you've got a whole bunch of scraps to recycle, and then you've got this piece. I don't, since I screwed up, but you've got this piece that you can use on something else. And that you could sign your card. There would be a cute place to sign your card or give another message. So I'm going to open that to show that I put the blank one on the inside of the card. You could reverse them if you wanted to. You know, then it would say, you know, you could have a message, you know, to so-and-so. And then on the inside, it would say, be your own kind of beautiful. Whichever you prefer. So you're going to center this on your card, on your flap rather, and then close it and put the other one on the front. And center. And then we just have our cork pieces. So I use this large one with the lines through it. And I'm just popping out those lines. A couple of mine are missing. That's okay. Put this over here. And then I'm going to use one of the ones, and I'll use one that, one of these outlines, the one I already popped the center out of. It's always harder to get the backing off of stickers when you're on camera. It's a proven fact. I'm pretty sure I had no trouble the first time I made my sample cards when nobody was watching me. There we go. Whoops. Don't stretch it. That one's a little easy to stretch out of position. And then we're going to put another little one that we popped out of the strip or the cluster. Put that there. Show you that one because this, my first one's not smudged. Whoops. Okay. So we've got a large gray piece of cardstock, and a smaller piece of gray cardstock, and an even smaller yellow piece of cardstock. And we're going to put the gray into our scoring board with the darker side up, facing you. Darker side scored 1/2 inch. The yellow one is the lighter side up facing you and scored 1/2 inch. So gray, darker side, yellow, lighter side. Fold towards the bumpy side and burnish on both pieces. I'm going to put my adhesive onto the flaps, onto the back of the flaps. Confirm my measurements for you. Okay, so I'm going to turn my card. I am going to place these again at 1/4 of an inch. So we're 1/4 of an inch from the top. We're going to attach the gray to the left side of the card, 1/4 of an inch down from the top. Turn it around. Oh, and the big piece of gray is also dark side up. Turn it around. The bottom. Put our ruler at 1/4 of an inch. Attach our yellow cardstock 1/4 of an inch up from the bottom, so it is attached on the right side of the card. Open those up, and I stamped. This is one of the cards I stamped on for you. If you don't like the stamping I did, you could always turn it over and use the other side. And I'm going to center this on my large gray card base. Okay, now both of these cards, we're simply going to cut in half. So this card is 4x6. So we're going to put the 6-inch side in the paper cutter and hold it vertically. Put it into the paper cutter sideways. And cut at 3 inches. So now you have 2 cards that are 4x3. We're going to cut the other piece. This is a 3x4 card. We're going to put it, hold the black stripes up, put the 4-inch side in your paper cutter, line it up at 2 inches, cut it at 2 inches. So now you have 2 pieces that are 3x2. And we're going to use all 4 of these pieces on our flaps. So the front and the back of these flaps will be the same. So I'm going to start with the black stripes. So I'm putting my my adhesive onto the yellow side of the stripes. And I'm going to put 1 piece centered on the back of the flap. And 1 piece centered on the top of the flap, front of the flap. Didn't do a good job centering that piece. That's a little better. Okay, so front and back. And then we're going to do the same thing on this one. If you have a word you want to highlight on the front of the card. You can pick whichever one you prefer. Center one on the front and one on the inside. If I remember correctly, we've now done most of the more complicated cutting, so it should be, you should be in a rhythm now. The rest of the cards should go a little quicker. So I put the hexagon that had the heart in the middle, and I punched the heart out. Put that on the black stripes. Also going to put a little hexagon from a punch out. And this one is one of these on the edge here. One of these. Nope. Is it? Nope, it's bigger than that one. Which one is it? Oh, you know which one it is? It's this one at the top here, between the two big ones. That's the size I used. Not that it matters that much, but I tried to put up different sizes on the cards to mix it up a little bit. So there you go. Just pause a minute in case anybody needs to catch up or take a little break. Breathe. Hope you guys are enjoying these. Got 3 more to go. This will be our next one. Oh, excuse me. Okay. So we've got a large gray, smaller yellow, and an even smaller gray. And we've got a bunch of cards here, including the one with the gray bee on the top. So we are going to put our yellow cardstock in our scoreboard with the darker side facing up, facing towards you. Score at 1/2 inch. I'm glad you love them, Lindsay. And yeah, I think they were, they would be fun for Christmas cards. We're going to put the gray with the lighter side up, long side in, or long side at the top rather, and score at 1/2 inch. The yellow one was, the long side was in too. Or at the top. I keep saying in, and I mean at the top. Fold towards the bumpy side and burnish. I think we mentioned before they'd be fun as picture cards because you could put a picture or several pictures on the flaps and still have space for messages. Okay, we're going to put our adhesive on our 1/2 inch flaps. And get our large gray card with the dark side facing up. And we're going to put these also at 1/4 inch. So we're going to put our ruler at 1/4 inch from the top of the card, one of the long sides. And we're going to attach our yellow flap. So that'll be the left side of the card. And then we're going to turn it around. So we've got the bottom of the card. Again, we're going to put our ruler at 1/4 inch. And then we're going to put our gray flap up 1/4 inch from the bottom on the right side of the card. And I think you guys all know this doesn't need to be said. If you are not anal about measurements, if you don't want to be as precise, you can attach the flaps wherever you want. I just want to give you the information of where I attached them so you know in case you do want to be precise. Okay, so let's open up our flaps. And we're going to put our big yellow card on the back. I think the yellows in this collection are really pretty. They are called, this darker color is called Sundance. And like I said, this this lighter color, the color of the cardstock, is called Shortbread. Okay, we're going to cut this plaid card just like we cut the black stripe. We're going to put the 4-inch side, the long side, into our paper cutter. See, it's 4 inches. We're going to move it to the 2-inch marking. Cut at 2 inches to get ourselves 2 3x2-inch cards. And I use the gray side. You could also use the yellowish side if you preferred. Some of them it was hard to decide which side I was going to use. So we're going to put one on the front and one on the back of this gray flap. Okay, this card here, I stamped on it for you. So we're going to have the yellow side or the stamp side up. And then we're going to, whoops, close it. And we're going to put our gray bee on. Let's see, I like that side too, but sometimes you just had to go with the orientation. So I'm putting the adhesive onto the yellow side and centering it on the front of my yellow flap. So I use this this cluster of 7 hexagons here on this card. So again, I'm going to punch out all the little ones from the center. And I'm going to put it on the smaller flap on the right. And I'm going to take one of the little ones that I punched out. And put that to the left of that, but I want to make sure I'm not overlapping where the yellow flap is. So you'll see there's just a tiny bit of space so it doesn't interfere. Put another small one onto the gray card. In the bottom right corner. And then this larger one is this here, another one from the top right. And I'm going to put this in the top left corner of the gray card. Whoops. Okay. So this card, we have a large gray piece of cardstock and 2 yellow flaps, slightly different sizes. So the larger yellow flap is going to get put in the paper cutter, the light side facing you, the shorter side at the top, and the shorter side is 3 3/4 inches. The longer side is 4 1/4. So you can make sure you have the right one. 3 3/4 goes along the top, 4 1/4 along the side, lighter side facing you, score at 1/2 inch. The smaller piece of yellow gets put with the longer side at the top. That's 4 inches wide. It's 3 1/4 inches tall down the side. Darker side facing up, score at a 1/2 inch. Fold and burnish. Fold towards the bumpy side. Apply your adhesive to the 1/4 or the 1/2 inch flaps. And we're going to turn it with the long side facing up because that's the easier way to attach them, in my opinion. We're going to put our ruler at 3/4 of an inch from the top of the card. That would be the short side of a card. We're going to attach the larger piece. This will be the left side of your card. 3/4 of an inch down from the top. Turn it around. So now I've got the bottom. And I'm going to put my ruler at 1/2 inch from the bottom. I'm going to attach the smaller flap 1/2 of an inch from the bottom edge along the right side of the card. Larger one, smaller one. Half. Okay. Open our flaps. We've got the large card for the back. Stamped a message on there for you. Center it on the back of the card. Okay. You've got a piece with bees and a piece with black hexagons. Now, this is the same paper, it's just the front and back. So your bees will be the smaller piece. If you shuffled your papers and you're not sure which is which. So the adhesive is actually going on to the black hexagons there. And this piece is going onto the flap on the right side. And you know it's the right direction because you'll have that 1/8 inch border all the way around. Okay, now backwards. On the back of this flap, we're going to put the black hexagons. Now, if you mix up your two pieces of paper and you end up switching them, so your bees are here and your black is here, that's fine. Or if you like your bees, you can put more bees over here. That's the advantage of the two-sided paper, right? Don't throw your paper with the adhesive on your work surface, though. I don't recommend that. Okay. So there you go. I'm going to put this on here first because the other card we have to cut for the other flap. So this will be the left flap, the larger one. We're going to put this, I don't know, this kind of star design on. This side is grayish and this side is yellowish. I liked the yellowish side, so I'm going to put the adhesive on the gray side. It's a very pale yellow and a very pale gray. I don't think I'm going to finish this class without having to change my adhesive, but at least it's at the end of the class this time instead of at the beginning. Okay, so that goes on the larger flap as is. This flower garden, we are going to trim a little bit. So we're actually going to put it into our paper cutter. I'm just confirming. Okay, so we're going to put it, so the paler side, so it's the design, oh, sorry, the light was glaring off of that. So the design is horizontal. That is the side we're going to use. We're going to turn it around and put it in our paper cutter so that the bottom, the leaves, our flowers are upside down, the leaves are at the top. We're going to put it in our paper cutter and cut at 3 1/4 inches. Just cutting off 3/4 of an inch, and you can discard that piece. And now it should fit perfectly on your flap, perfectly centered. This goes on the right side flap, the smaller flap on the outside or the top, whichever you like to call it. I got a little stray adhesive there. I'm just trying to rub off. But it is being stubborn. Okay, so we just have to put our cork pieces on. I'm going to punch out one of these. Well, I guess it's going to punch out that one because it just came right out. One of the ones with the outlines and then, you know, the solid center. And we're going to use both pieces. So the outline is going to go in the top right corner of the larger flap with the starbursts. And the center is going to go on your flower garden flap. And I just put it kind of after between the second and third flower here, just so it wasn't over the flower, just above them. And then I'm going to add 3 more of the small ones that got punched out of previous pieces. And the first one's going to go in the bottom left corner of your large flap. Again, so it's clear of this flap. I'm going to put another one in the top left corner of the card base, the large card that's on the back card base. And I'm going to put the third one here kind of between these two larger ones, but on the larger flap. And now we have our last card. The last card has a yellow card base and 2 gray flaps. So we're going to put the larger gray flap, lighter side towards you, into your scoreboard with the narrower side at the top. That would be 3 3/4 inches. The measurement down the side is 4 1/4 inches. So at 3 3/4 inches, you're going to score at a 1/2 inch, with again the lighter side facing you. The smaller card gets put into your scoreboard with the longer side at the top. The longer side is 3 3/4 inches. Light side is facing you. The shorter side is 3 1/2 inches. So be careful. It's almost square, but not quite. So with 3 3/4 at the top, you're going to score at a 1/2 inch. You're going to fold on the bumpy side and burnish. Apply your adhesive to the back of your 1/2 inch flaps. I'm turning my large yellow cardstock horizontally. I have the darker side facing me. The larger flap, it's taller, will go. I will position my ruler 3/4 inch from the top. So the flap gets positioned 3/4 inch from the top on the left-hand side of the card. Turn it around. I've got my ruler at a 1/2 inch. The smaller flap will get positioned a 1/2 inch from the bottom on the right side of the card. Opening my flaps, I'm going to put my large yellow card on the back. Centered. I'm going to find my bee paper, the one with the colorful bees. I'm going to put my adhesive onto this black hexagon side. Whoop, and there's, see, I only had 3 more pieces to go. Okay. I'm going to put my bees on the inside of the right side flap, that smaller flap. And this is the card. Remember I told you way at the beginning, I cut one in half. We used this side of the other one. Well, we're going to use the gray this time. So put your adhesive on the yellow side. It's this faint, repetitive pattern of bees. We're going to put that on the inside of the left flap, the larger flap. Okay, this our last card we have to cut. Just confirm this measurement for you. Okay, so you can see the card came printed. It said La Botanica on it. I stamped this "Be Your Own Kind of Beautiful." We're going to cut the Botanica off. So we're going to put it in the paper cutter, the 4-inch side into the paper cutter. We're going to position it at 3 1/4. So the Botanica is on the right. That is the side that is going to get cut off. 3 1/4. And that's what we're left with. And you can save this for something else, or you can toss it. And you can see the same, the other side had the same kind of design. It was just horizontal instead of vertical. I'm going to center that on our right, the front of our right side flap. And then we just have the front of the left side flap, and you can see that there's flowers. Now, I kind of didn't do a great job stamping mine, so I cut out another piece of yellow paper, and I'm going to use that instead because I did a better job stamping on that one. But yours was on that card with the, this distressed background. And that goes on the front of that flap. And then we just have to add a few cork pieces. Now, we're going to go back to that piece that with that long strip that we cut these 3+. Oh, Sorry, Lindsay, I just looked up and saw that your ATG ran out at the same time. That's funny. I guess that's good timing though. So anyway, we're going to use these three hexagons, but we're going to cut off this partial one. So I'm just going to cut it right flush with that straight edge. And then you see there's kind of like little nubbies on the end. I'm just going to position my scissors straight along the lines going the other direction and cut that off and make a better edge there. And it fit perfectly. It was like it was planned right underneath the taller card. Well, maybe not quite perfectly. So I'm just going to open this up and I'm going to line that up right at the bottom of the cardstock. Whoops, I'm sorry about that, guys. I moved mine a little. I should have warned you. Keep this flap closed so you know not to put it over too far to the right. There you go. You want it between this left edge and the left edge of the smaller flap. And that'll come over it just a little bit. And that heart that we punched out earlier, will go on this card above the Be Your Own Kind of Beautiful. And then there's a smaller heart up here. Well, there's several of them. Take one right from the top up here and put that above the flowers on the left flap. And that is all the cards. Whew. And before I lose them, I'm going to put all the rest of my cork shapes back in my bag because I've got them for lots of other projects. Okay, so this is just to show you ahead that this is going to be March's stamp of the month, and it's all these little critters, and it's got these funny saying because there's like a crab and it says, "Oh crab, I forgot," and there's a toad. It's totally amazing. And a moose seeing you around. Have a whaley great day. Get whale soon. So doggone sweet. Thanks for owl you do. You're roarsome. I miss you, no lion. So that's kind of cute. So keep that in mind if you are looking to place orders in the future, this will be March, so it'll be $5 with a $50 purchase, or you can get it at full price too. I've also got I had a request for a St. Patrick's Day card class. So I put together some St. Patrick's Day cards. That's the first one. It says sending many wishes your way. So that doesn't even have, I mean, they don't even have to be St. Patrick's Day cards. They can just be lucky cards. I turned this little gnome into a leprechaun. And this is one of our shaker cards. So if you took the shaker card class, you'll know how to make this shaker card with lots of the leprechaun's gold inside. And then this is the lucky card, horseshoe and shamrocks. So this class is on February 22nd. It's another Tuesday at just confirming that I have that number right. Another one at 6:30, and as usual, recording will be available if you can't make it live. Yes, it's 2 weeks from today on the 22nd. What else did I have? Oh, I know Cheryl's been looking for birthday cards. I have great news. I've been trying to brainstorm birthday cards, but in the next catalog, which starts in March, there is these PML cards. There is a set of birthday cards and birthday paper and birthday stamps. So those will be coming in March. I've got to order my samples and get going on those. And then as soon as I have samples, I'll show you. But those are coming. And then I have a couple other class ideas coming. But, as always, if you have special requests, just let me know. The current catalog ends at the end of the month. So if you need anything, start thinking about it. And I think that's everything I wanted to tell you guys. If you have any other questions about these cards, just let me know. And I'm glad you ended up enjoying them so much, Lindsay. Yeah, I know you weren't first in love with the paper, but I know the same thing has happened to me in the past. Sometimes I look at the paper or the colors, or for some reason it's like, oh, that's not really my thing. But then once you play with it, it's very easy to fall in love with them. So I am glad you like them so much. And yep, it's a fun technique. So you can use it on all sorts of cards. So hopefully you'll find lots of use for it. All right, I am going to sign off. I will hopefully see you all soon. Good night.